So I thought that I would do a quick video on doing a pet German trim or clip German trim on your standard poodle, or any size poodle really. He has been bathed, he has been dried, he has been brushed out, combed out, and he is ready to go. His face, his feet, his groin area has been clipped. I have videos, at least on the face and feet, on other videos, so I'm not going to show you those, but we'll just go ahead and start doing the actual German trim. So what I'm going to start with, just to be easy, I'm going to start with the back of the tail. You usually want to take that very short to help your tail set look good, as well as to, you just don't need a whole bunch of hair falling off the back of that. And then it also can make your rear angles look a little bit better, your shelf and stuff, because it makes the tail look very up there, and then you can have a little bit of shelf. So I've got a equivalent to a 7-blade length on my clipper, so I'm just going to take it right from the very base and go straight up to the tip of the tail. Sometimes they can be a little bit not like the clipper there, but as you can see, I've just gone straight up to the back of it. You round it slightly onto the sides to help you start blending it in. And I might even just do it a little bit just on the tip itself, just so that there's less bulk there. But yeah, I've taken that length off there. And then I'm going to move to the equivalent of a 4-blade. And what I'm going to do on this is I'm going to do the top line. So I'm going to take that on the top line, and this is going to be a length or two shorter than the other lengths that you would use, because if you leave a whole bunch of bulk up here, it's just going to make your tail set look lower. It's just going to make the whole dog look kind of bulkier, and it can make the neck look shorter. You just don't need a whole lot of length in this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it from, if you feel for your dog's withers, you kind of take it 3 or 4, kind of maybe a hand's width back from there, depending on if you're doing a mini or if you're doing a toy. Obviously you want to adjust it. You also want to kind of fall in line with the back of your front legs, like that's because when your dog is built with a nice front, their wither falls over their elbow. But you don't want to start it right there when you're clipping it, because you want to be able to give yourself room to blend that into the body. So I'm going to take it a little bit past that, kind of, his withers are kind of here. I'm going to take it kind of a hand's width back from there, and we're just going to bring it in, and we're going to clip straight back, but then when we get by the tail, we're going to lift off, because you don't want to take the hair off in front of the tail, because if you take the hair off in front of the tail, you're going to make your tail set look low. You're not going to make it look like it's blending into the body. So you really want to just feather it out. If you bring the tail down, just feather it out just over the tail so that you're not losing that. Again, you'd rather leave too much in the areas that you want to blend in rather than too little, because if you leave too much, you can always just scissor it shorter or come back again and redo it. But if you take it too short right off the bat, then you're kind of stuck. So there, I've kind of clipped off my back, and I can just play with this a little bit, but I've got that clipped in. And then what I can do is I can also take it, you're going to create kind of a V over the tail so that you have it so you can blend the tail into the body. But we can take it a little bit down and drop it off of our shelf just to help save us time. It depends on how you want to do your German. Everybody can have a different way, whether you want a completely straight drop there, whether you want a slight angle here. Standard poodles should have about a 30-degree angle here. So depending on your dog's shelf shape, etc. But I'm going to just take it. I'm not pressing all the way down, just because again, I would rather leave too much than not enough. But I've created a little bit of a V here. I haven't done this side yet, but create a little bit of V there, and then you can blend that in. So now we've got his top knot and kind of his start of his shelf done there. So now I'm going to switch to a slightly longer length, which is kind of the length that I actually want his body to be. I'm going to try a yellow. We've been working on growing out his legs from being in a different trim. So I don't want to have too long in the body because I want the legs to look longer. You want the legs to look quite full compared to the body. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to take away the bulk by the neck here. I'm going to leave, I'm just going to take out the bulk here. I'm not going to go further down here on the chest because that I want to scissor in to make sure that I'm giving him a nice looking front. So I'm just taking out the bulk and working over the shoulder, and I'm going to leave the entire chest area. So I'm going to start kind of, here's the point of shoulder here, and I'm going to start a little bit back from it just so that I can again work that in. So I'm just going to take it, I'm going to drop it straight off. You don't want to dig in here. You just want to drop it straight off. And you don't also want to go too high here because you want to leave this for your crest to make the neck look nicer and such. So you don't want to take it too high up here. Again, you'd rather start lower. So I would take it maybe, I'm going to take it probably about there, and then I can blend it back up into the body. But again, you'd rather have too much there to blend in than not enough. So I'm just going to continue to just take this down here, and then I'm going to start blending it up into that, and I can go right up into my top line where I clipped it. We'll have to just thin out that line there, make that line look good. But take it right up there, take it right down here, take all of this bulk off. Now when you get to your tuck-up area, when you're doing your sanitary area, make sure you're not taking off all of this hair here, because you don't want your tuck up to be all the way back there. Let me see if I can turn it for a slightly better angle. You don't want your tuck up to be all the way back here, because that's just going to make your dog look really long in the body. So you want to make sure you're not taking off too much there. I came a little bit forward. I think I can still make that work, but right here is a little bit thinner than I would have liked. So you just want to be careful of that when you're doing it. But then you also want to drop off and not take that hair away when you're clipping the body. So I'm pulling it away as I'm coming down there so that I'm still leaving all of this hair underneath there. I'm then going to lift up the leg, and I'm going to, remember I want to have this chest hair to blend in, so I'm going to go kind of halfway under the leg I'm not going completely to the front of him. And I'm going to remove this hair. And again, you don't want to be taking your tuck up hair, so be careful when you're doing that area. And then just smoothing anything out. You can always smooth it out more with scissors as well. Alright, so then the hind end area, I always go a little bit on the cautious side, and I don't tend to go too far with my clippers, just because I like to be able to scissor in anything that I want to really give shape to. But I'm kind of just dropping it off here, off the leg, because you don't need big heavy sides on it. Like, you don't want to look like you've got these big old saddlebags hanging off the side. So I'm just taking that area, and then the rest of it I'm going to scissor. The one thing I forgot to do when I was using the 4 is I forgot to do this angle at the back of the leg. So you want this to be really tight. You want your shortest point when you bend your dog's leg. You want it right where the dog's leg is the most bent. That's where you want to do the shortest part of your leg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start just before that and come in, and then I'm going to come away before I get to the shelf area. So I'm going in and coming away before the shelf area. So I have shaved this area short, but I've left myself area to play in the shelf area, which is right by like the pin bone. And then I've left kind of the sides. I can come out a little bit, and I've left the sides to play with. And I've gone kind of also onto the inside here, so you don't need extra bulk on the inside. But now we've kind of blocked in our clipping work. So he's got our basic shapes that we're looking for. We just now need to kind of tie everything together. So that's when you're going to take out your scissors. And you can start wherever you're most comfortable. I'm probably just going to start along this top line and get your dog standing somewhat squarely. Again, if you're doing this just for strictly like a pet person, then having them stand exactly perfectly proper isn't as big of a deal, and you can't always expect that of a dog that hasn't been trained to stand properly. But if you can get them to stand fairly proper, then that is ideal. So I'm just blending in my line between my shorter top line area and the rest of the body length. And then we're going to blend in our tail set here. So again, you just want to just continue the curve into the tail so that's continuous and smooth. I'm just going to work it into there. And whoops. Comb it. Fluff out anything that needs to be fluffed out. You don't need to leave too much bulk in front of the tail. You just want it to blend nicely in. And of course, everything depends on your specific dog's structure and what will look best on them. But kind of basic rules. So I'm just going to round in the back of the tail, make that look seamless. And I'm going to take the front of the tail. You don't need much. You don't need much length. It's up right at the very base of the tail. The rest of it can go quite short. And just blending this in, making this look good. clearing away any stuff that doesn't need to be there. I'm going to take my curves backwards and just chisel up this line a little bit more. And then slightly lower the tail to just blend that in as well. Just make sure you don't take off too much length. So you can kind of see the shape that we're getting there for that. And then if you want, you can just carry on your leg. So I'm going to leave kind of the top of the shelf area for now, and I'm going to just blend in this bottom area. I'm just kind of tapering it out a little bit, and I'm going to take the bulk that's coming beside his bum and just clean that off slightly, kind of more on the inside by the bum hole rather than on the shelf, because you want to make sure that you're really watching your shelf area, that you're not losing it too much. You don't want to have a lot of bulk behind the shelf and the tail. Like his pin bone right now has about I don't know, maybe 1/4 of an inch on it, but there's a little bit more hair kind of above the pin bone, so that we kind of create that corner without leaving a whole bunch on the bum. Because if you leave a whole bunch on the bum, again, you'll make your dog look longer, and you really don't want to make your dog look any longer. I'm trying to see if I have a good picture. He's not quite there yet. So I'm fairly happy with that area. I wouldn't mind. Last time I went a little bit too short just right here. I wouldn't mind just a little bit extra just at the top here. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with that. And that's, again, the thing is, you know, you'd rather leave too much and have to take a little bit more off. So we're working on growing out his legs, like I said, from a different trim. So I'm not going to be taking very much off of them. We're just going to kind of be blending it into his trim. So from the area that I shaved back here, I'm just going to blend that hair in. I'm going to continue it. Poodles have a well let down hock, so you don't want to be curving out here, because then you're going to make the hock look high. You want to keep your hock looking low. So you want to continue that line down, but you don't want to lose your hock hair. You still want to have that angulation there. So I'm just going to tip the back. I'm really bad about doing a proper bevel on the foot, so I usually just kind of race through this part. I've never been good at doing bevels. And it'd be nice to start on your leg with doing the bevel, just because then you aren't squishing your leg hair while you're trying to do it. But I'm just going to quickly do that, because like I said, I'm bad at it. But just create your bevel, and you want it to be a little bit lifted at the back. You don't want to have a ton of stuff hanging off this back, because you want this angle to look kind of lifted, so the dog looks almost a little bit up on his toes, kind of like a terrier. Some people do call this the terrier trim, but you do want to kind of make that area look kind of lifted, so you don't want to leave a whole bunch of bulk at the back here. We're gonna, you don't need a whole bunch of length in between the legs. So I'm just gonna blend this in, not doing anything kind of fancy. You want poodle rears to be a little bit like an A, and so it's going to just gently move outwards, like an A at the back. Alright, so that's kind of blended in. I know, I wish I could move the angles a little bit more, but it's difficult to fit my tripod in here super easily. So again, what I'm doing is I'm just blending my clip line into my leg line. I'll take you around at the end once I have him done. And again, the lower leg is always a little bit longer than the upper leg as far as hair length goes. Try to stay out of the way, but make sure that you do check your angles from different angles so you can see how your actual leg is coming along. That angulation at the back isn't looking too bad. I'm relatively happy with that for trying to do it on camera anyways. So in the front, I'm trying to grow out a little bit of knee hair on him. So I'm not going to really take anything off there because I want a little bit of knee hair so I can kind of create the illusion of that angle there. I'm going to continue my bevel a bit around here. And then I'm just going to clean up the inside here. Again, watch for your tuck up hair. Just continuing to just shape that angulation. Alright, so that doesn't look too bad there. So that's it with the tail up. You can see we've got our shelf. A nice angulation there. Growing a little bit more knee hair there, but overall that's not too bad. So I'm going to come up and do the tuck up area, and I'm just going to remove the bow. Again, you want to bring it forward, but you don't want to bring it way too forward. So you kind of want to have it start curving kind of just before. If you know where you set a jacket on a poodle, which is kind of at the kind of belly button-y area, that's a good area to start curving that angle on your German trim. So again, I've taken a little bit too much hair off right there. So I would have liked just a little bit more right in there. But I've taken a little bit off. From in the camera, that looks fairly good from what I can see. But in real life, I would have liked a touch more hair just here. So now we can just move on to the front end. Start with the chest area here. So I'm just going to rebrush it out from having clipped in that area. And make sure that his feet are underneath of him so that you can see what you're working on. So you want the shoulder angle to be a 45-degree angle. So you can scissor that in if you feel you need to take a little bit more bulk off. It's not too bad. I think my clippers did a good job of working that in, but you want to go really tight along the clipper line. You don't want to have bulk off your clipper lines. You want that really tight there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push his head back, because poodles, I saw somebody once say, I think it was Becky Gobby, you want your head to meet your tail. So when you're stacking your poodle, you always want the head back and the tail forward. So then what I'm going to do, I'm going to try not to get in your way. I'm going to do this from the front, but do it from the side where you can see it. Because I'm going to again take off the bulk by my clipper line. I've never been amazing at fronts, but the last time turned out pretty good. So I've taken off kind of the bulk here, and then I'm just going to blend this in, and I want to just create a nice not a boob. You don't want a big boob hanging up there, but you want it to just kind of give you a little bit of a chest, a little bit of a look of a sternum out here, and then come back in for the legs. And you want it to kind of blend into your chest line here. So this is a little hard to do when I can't really see what I'm doing because I'm trying to stay out of the way of the camera. But see, I'm just rounding it in, kind of following the angle here of my clip into the chest. Depending on your dog's build, you may have to leave more hair, you may have to leave less hair. But I'm just blending that in. And that looks pretty good, I'd say. Coming to the front, making sure I don't have any bulk hanging out the sides. Continuing this line under the belly, under the chest, so that it all blends in. There we go. I'm going to try and just continue it a little bit onto this side, just so that when I'm bringing it around, you can kind of see it a little bit without a whole bunch of bulk being in the way. I'll only do one side on camera because the other side is the same. I haven't actually clipped this area, so just blend it so that it doesn't look too out of place. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good there. So then we'll just work on the front legs. Again, he, scissors are breaking a little bit. He doesn't have a ton of leg hair still, so I'm not going to take a whole lot off, but the general rule is that you want more hair on the back of the leg than you do on the front. So that is going to help shorten your dog's body, so he's not standing super well right now. But that is going to, if you have nothing here, then this space gets really big. And that will make your dog look longer. And if you leave a whole bunch of bulk on the front of your leg, that's going to not let your front end look like it's at the correct angle. It's going to make your legs look like they're set more forward. And so I'm just going to, again, hopefully staying out of the way of the camera, just going to take this front end, front part shorter. I wouldn't normally scissor at this angle, but again, I'm trying to stay hopefully out of the way of the camera. Always stand where you can see what you are doing. And I'll just quickly do my bevel. Spend more time on your bevel than I do. Just picking that up. And doing the back as well. Again, taking this area a bit shorter and then rounding it back into the rest of the leg. And then again, you're just going to blend that out from your clipper line. So if you need to do any blending, you're just going to blend it out from your clipper line. And then I'm just going to lightly tidy the rest of the leg. Sorry, my awkward scissors are falling apart. How about that? I'm just tidying up the end so that it looks a little bit more nicely scissored, even though I'm not taking much length off. I'm just doing this quickly. He's not doing nothing, not going out in public like the rest of us aren't going out in public. So he doesn't like to look super good. Alright. So that's kind of the basic idea there. I'll stack him just so you can see what I have done at this point. Alright, he's standing like a bit of a goob. Alright. Good. So that's kind of what we've gotten so far. Again, I may play with the chest a little bit more when I can actually see it at a proper angle, and I'm not trying to stay out of the camera's way because you don't want it to look too big. But you just want to do 2 leaves on there. Anyway, so that is the main body done. So then we're going to move on to the head and neck. So I tend to start at the head, but you could start at the neck, depending on how you want to kind of blend that in. I'm just going to make sure that we're combed out, standing up. So, I wonder if I could, I'm going to start with the neck, just so that you guys can see me do that before I try and bring it a bit more to the front for the head, I think. So, I'm going to make sure it's as fluffed as possible, as even as possible, and then I'm going to, it's hard to do without getting in the way, I'm going to just scissor it in, just blend in that line. So that it's a smooth transition. I'm going to take off some up here. Do the same on the sides. I'll sometimes turn my scissors even backwards to bulk this out. But you don't want to be pointing your scissors like towards the dog in, because then you're going to end up with kind of more of a mohawk look, and you want to make sure that you're giving it a crest look. You don't want it to look narrow. You want it to kind of be kind of the same width, or maybe a slightly less width than your body. So you want it to you want to make sure that you're not pointing your scissors towards your dog. Just have them very straight, not in. And just keep fluffing things, seeing how things are looking. I'm trying to just blend this in. Taking off any bulk where there's too much bulk, so you have that smooth transition. Again, just pick away at it till you're happy with it. If you can, stand back and look at it. If your dog will keep their head straight, see what you think of it. Look at it from slightly different angles. Okay, again, just picking at things that you see as you go. Okay. again, it's a little bit hard for me trying to stay out of the camera's way for how things look. But not looking too bad. And again, this side isn't fully done yet, which makes it a little bit harder too. So, once you're fairly happy with how your neckline is looking, then you can move on to doing either the head or the ears. So again, with the clipping part, the ears are really dependent on the person. I like ears a little bit longer, so I'm going to take the brown comb, which I think is supposed to be equal to a 3 3/4 or a 5/8. I often do it as my 5/8 length, and I'm just going to take it. I might do the 4 length actually. Take a little bit more off. And I'm going to, you don't want to start it where you're digging in to the top of the head, because otherwise you have a divot in your top knot. So start it kind of where it bends back down, like it kind of comes out and bends back down. So that's kind of where I'm going to start this line. I'm going to take it out to the edge. Make sure you're always going out away from the middle of the ear, not ever wanting to go in towards those edges or anything. And then I'm going to flip the ear at the back, and I'm going to do the same thing, going out and away from the middle of the ear. There we are. And then you can just take your scissors and tidy up your edges. Making sure that you always hold your fingers so that you can feel your fingers on both sides. That way you're going to make sure that you don't cut your dog's ear. So you should always be able to feel your fingers on each side of the ear touching. Otherwise you could have skin in there. Okay, so that is the ear done. So now I'm going to see if I can get you closer to the head. Okay, so we're going to try to work on the head. As you can see, he currently doesn't have any eyes, so we're going to try and fix that. So I'm going to take my curves, I'm going to take them upside down, and I'm just going to go along the line over the eyes, holding it kind of at a bit of an angle, but you don't want to take off too much. I'm just clearing over his eyes and continuing that line across underneath, or across between the eyes. Comb it forward, but then I'm also going to then comb it back so that I'm, again, not taking off too much at once. I'm going to flip this ear back a bit, and I'm going to take this line and I'm going to scissor it. Again, not straight up, because again it just allows me a little bit more hair to play with. And I'd probably take my clipper back out and just tidy this line a little bit. But I don't have to worry about that right now. So then we're going to start to just lift a little and then blending it in to the hair at the back, which then blends into the neck. I'm just blending this all in together, and depending on what length you want your top knot to make your dog look balanced, you might leave more, you might leave less. I actually do want to clean up that line just because it helps me see what I'm doing. take that off, and then I'm just gonna blend it into what we've got on the body. And then I'm going to round this area so that you don't have just a huge hangover over top of the eyes, a big ledge. But you want it to come forward. You don't want it to come straight up. You want it to round forward. Otherwise you give them a bit of an odd expression. So there I've got that kind of rounded forward. And you can tinker with it as you need. I'm kind of only doing one side of the head like I've been doing for the rest of the body, which I just realized that I still have to do the rest of the body after this. Which I kept thinking that I was almost done. So I think I'll take a little bit of bulk off of it. Just to... Alright, so I ran out of battery on the other one. So this is what we finished off the head. Again, I haven't quite finished that side, but you can see it's just kind of nicely rounded. We've cleared up over his eyes. It blends down into the neck. Again, I haven't refluffed this completely, but you can see that angles down into the neck, head, and then tail, 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 tail. This is how the body kind of looks. I think he's looking pretty dapper. See if I can get his head and his tail. Tail, 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 tail. Stay. Yeah, that's kind of what we've got going on. I hope that was helpful to you and gave you some ideas of what, how to do a pet German trim on your pet dog or your ex-show dog. He's an ex-show dog. Or, you know, a client dog. You know, client dogs, you might take just a longer clip comb over the chest area. You might not leave quite as much head or neck. You know, that kind of depends on what the client is looking for, what they're willing to upkeep, that kind of thing. But otherwise, it's a fairly easy trim to put together on a dog that's somewhat kept well maintained. So I hope you found that interesting and helpful to watch. And thanks for watching.